Good morning, everyone. Good morning, everyone. Microphone is on, that's fantastic. It didn't really take me that long to walk to the stage. I just thought I'd watch the video from my chair with all of you before kicking this off. But it's great to be here back in Chicago. Some of you were here with us 2 years ago, and I think you will agree it's a superb venue. We're going to have a lot of fun together. I'm really, really grateful for all the speakers. We have some amazing customers here who are going to share their stories and their success on stage today and tomorrow. So thank you so much for giving up your time and coming and sharing your success stories with everyone here. And then we have some other expert speakers on the economy and all things related to commercial optimization. So as I say, great to be back. 3 years ago, we had our first ever Catalyze, okay? And we started with a bold vision. And that vision was really all about how we could use rebates collaboratively to drive mutual success across the supply chain. A lot has happened in the last 3 years, and today this room is filled with industry leaders who really understand that in today's world, standing still means falling behind. And I'm just really excited by what we're all going to learn and the great content we have in store. Before I dive in, I want to just share a quick story. I was talking with someone just the other day who said to me, Andrew, we just lost $3.2 million in a month because we couldn't react to a 15% spike in material cost quickly enough. Our ERP literally couldn't allow us to update across all of our endpoints fast enough, and it cost us over $3 million in a month. And I think what really struck me is this wasn't due to poor strategy. This was not due to poor planning. This was literally due to system failure and just not being able to react in time. And I've heard different versions of that story time and time again. All kinds of different industries, all kinds of different geographies, but very, very similar story. So the world is accelerating while commercial systems are really stuck in first gear. That's the reality that we're in. You clearly don't need me to tell you that we're living in extraordinary times. It's really hard to overstate the significance of all the external forces that are kind of reshaping the world right now. Really, really hard to do that. We're witnessing a global realignment in trade. And this is affecting nearly every economy and every industry. And this is really, we're kind of seeing supply chains that maybe took decades to form being reconfigured in a matter of weeks. It's just absolutely astonishing to witness. I think the T word is going to come up quite a few times today and tomorrow. We had our customer advisory board yesterday, and I was informed about 6 o'clock this morning that people are fed up of hearing the T word, so I didn't have time to rewrite my whole keynote, but apologies in advance for that. But you know, clearly tariffs are appearing and have appeared and disappeared constantly, and costs are just fluctuating with really unprecedented volatility. So it's been a really busy time for all of us. So busy, in fact, that I haven't had time to cut my hair. My wife actually thinks it looks good, but I'm not so sure. I'm not so sure about that, especially in the windy city of Chicago, trying to get here at high speed. And we live in San Francisco and look out over the bay. We look through the Bay Bridge, and when I occasionally look up from my computer screen, I can see all the cargo ships, sailing in and out of the port of, which one is it? Oakland. So Oakland is just under the bridge in the distance. And normally the view is dominated. It's absolutely dominated with freight ships, cargo ships going in and out constantly. And I have to say, the last couple of months, it's just been an empty view. Okay, there's just very, very little activity. And I was speaking with one of our great customers, who was in the room with us here today, I believe, and they run a really major industrial supplies company in the US and have their own branded product, which is made in China. And he actually said to me that they have brought nothing in from China, nothing. They've been making this stuff, it's been accumulating in inventory, and it's been sitting in China and not coming into the West Coast. So that partly explains why I can't see all these cargo ships moving. But it just got me thinking about the scale and about the impact of this, and it's just sitting and waiting to see what will happen and if and when this product will come from China into the US. Now, I spend a lot of my time talking with customers, and I'm constantly learning. One of our values in Enable is we stay curious, and there's always so much more to learn, so much more we can improve. So another customer I spoke to the other day was the CFO of a very large food supply company, okay? And he was talking to me about how he personally, the CFO of a multi-billion-dollar company here, spent 10 hours in a single day really trying to understand the impact of one particular, I'll say the word, tariff, and what that would be, okay, that one particular, and then by the end of that same day, the whole thing had been pulled. So it was 10 hours just completely wasted in a day. And then let's move industries for a moment. I was working with the chief procurement officer of one of our hospitality customers, and this is a company who actually operate over 1,000 hotels across North America. And what he was explaining was international travel into the US, and specifically from Canada and Europe, has been down up to 70% recently, 70%. So of course, occupancy is way down. That's hugely affecting demand, hugely affecting how they plan and replan their business. And also conferences. He said conferences have been quite good in Q1 and Q2, so we're all here today. But he was saying already Q3 and Q4 is looking bare. He's looking across 1,000 hotel properties, and a lot of those conferences have been cancelled. So the impact is just huge. I think the other big kind of word, as well as the T word and what we've been talking about just now, is of course what has been happening with AI, which has been accelerating at a phenomenal pace. And the fact is, this is also truly reinventing how we all work. Okay, we're way past the experimentation stage now, and we're into real impact. And I think many of us kind of laugh about how in the supply chain, in physical goods, manufacturing, distribution, we're not necessarily the most tech-forward industry. We're not necessarily, and we see different things arise. But this is now truly changing how companies operate in a massive way. And when you bring that into the equation with the overall kind of macro conditions, then it does create quite a puzzle and an opportunity to solve. And I would say, since generative AI really got public attention in a big way, back in beginning of 2023, I would say, we've kind of moved quickly from the early adoption phase, where it was just the most visionary, most innovative people who were kind of playing with it and doing a few things. Certainly Silicon Valley, where I'm based, it was huge, but for many of us, and in the industrial supply chain, for example, it was very early. But we're kind of way past that now. And many CEOs that I talk to have actually said in their companies that they will not allow any new hires at all until it can be justified why that job cannot be done with AI. And this includes backfills, by the way. And this is in many industries. This is kind of really widespread. So if you're feeling overwhelmed, you're not alone. I can see some nodding heads. And the pace of what's happening in the world right now is certainly dizzying. So I think, in this really volatile world, the question that should be keeping us all awake at night is, how can we seize new opportunities while protecting our margins and also maximizing financial outcomes? That's really what we need to be thinking about. And the answer will not be found by just doing what we've always done. Commercial management itself needs to evolve. So sometimes when we try and remember how things were, it's quite hard. It's quite hard to remember how things used to be. And take the internet, for example. So once again, in the Bay Area, the 5G mobile connectivity is extremely good. It's really good. Okay, you can have Zoom calls up and down the 101, the 280. It's kind of really high-speed internet. But it's easy to take that for granted very, very quickly until you leave. You get on a plane and you fly away from San Francisco, and then you land somewhere. I won't name and shame any particular cities, but things are quite different. And you remember, how good the internet connection is back at home. And I've got into trouble before where I've kind of scheduled Zoom meetings when I'm driving up and down the M40 in the UK, and most of those Zoom meetings don't work. Or, of course, the other one is Wi-Fi on planes. I was actually flying in here, and I don't know if you have experienced this, but where you kind of get the Wi-Fi on United, and someone sends you an image. It's like a 2 megabyte image, and you're trying to download the image, and it's got 10 kilobytes out of 2 megabytes, and you're like, oh, that is how the internet used to be. That's how that was like high-speed internet not that long ago. So, really, to fully appreciate why commercial management must evolve, I want to just step back and look at how fundamentally different trading relationships were not that many years ago. And when I look at, and I'll use the word supply chain generically, but any industry where we have manufacturers that supply to, or through, I should say, distribution. It can be any type of distribution. I'm not sure why we've got a white circle there, but that should be fine. To the end customer. It doesn't matter what it is. Automotive, food service, industrial supplies, office products, pharmaceutical, whatever it might be. Any supply chain like that. The way that it used to work not that many years ago, and I'm talking about when we were kind of in the early days of Enable, is each entity operating in a silo. So you would have manufacturers that made things. They would deliver their products to distributors that would stick them in inventory, stick them in a warehouse. And then from there, a contractor would show up in a truck. They would drive in to their local builders merchants or their local automotive parts company or whatever company it might be, food service. They would drive in their truck and they would do business locally. And that was fine. And that is how business was done across the supply chain, and it represented the majority of trade. It was the majority of GDP. And I think in those days, commercial deals, commercial arrangements were really, not that complex. It was quite a straightforward process to manage the trading terms and my sale agreements, my purchase agreements. It was really straightforward to do. And in fact, I remember one early customer who had an entire team that was just focused on the rebates that they earned from suppliers. This was a distributor in the UK. And this is what the team was focused on. And they were actually paid a bonus, their entire bonus in fact, based on the rebates that they earned. And that's all they were interested in. Now, they were often selling the products at a loss, but that was someone else's job. That was another department. Or product would come in and it would sit in their warehouse and it would stay there and gather dust. But if they got their rebate, they earned their bonus. That's all they were interested in. This actually got so kind of big that they had to create a thing called a net price tracker, because sometimes they would actually reduce the rebate because they were getting a much better off-invoice price. So the invoice price went down and they had to record somewhere that they should still get their bonus because they'd moved from rebate to kind of a lower invoice price. So that, as you can tell, is very kind of siloed thinking. And that world is largely gone. That is not really around anymore. And I use my internet analogy to just try to ask you to cast your minds back and see if you can remember and agree with me on how that was, because times really, really have moved on today. And I think everywhere I look, systems have just failed to evolve. The business world, the way we manage our commercial arrangements has moved on, but systems have just not evolved. And there's countless other examples I've spoken with you guys in this room about, merchandising teams coming up with brilliant strategies to counter a competitor, but by the time your ERP can execute, by the time you can execute that, 6 weeks have passed and you've missed 10% of the revenue opportunity of that kind of merchandising initiative. Or maybe your finance team discovers that you've under-accrued rebates by $4.5 million because contract terms are kind of buried somewhere and not in the right system. So these are not hypothetical situations. These are real stories, real kind of problems that you guys are facing today. And of course, I hear similar stories in pricing. So we've got brilliant pricing teams that are blocked by ERP that can't handle the complexity or can't move at the speed of business today. And the numbers are pretty staggering. So we looked at some research conducted by EPP and also Professional Pricing Society, and this was actually over a 3-year period. So in the last 3 years, 86% of pricing professionals say their organizations lost profit due to specifically being unable to process price changes rapidly. Specifically that one area. So, quite a big deal. And what can you do? If you can't handle this in ERP, then often and generally we're all resorting to spreadsheets. I was with a customer on Monday, really great Enable customer, huge public manufacturer, and they use us for many things, but on price lists and list prices, they're entirely in Excel. And they have 10 million part numbers, can you believe? Global company, 10 million part numbers. They've had to do 3 price changes so far this year, just this year, and it's on Excel. So you can start to see if you're updating the pricing of 10 million part numbers in a global company where you've got all kinds of pricing rules and discounts and so on globally, that takes a long time. And you're losing money, you're executing at the wrong price for a long time while those changes are being updated. I think also the numbers add up. If you're making a 5% profit margin and you're losing just 1% of revenue through not having the right price being executed on the sell side, you're losing 1%, that equates to a 20% profit leakage. Simple math. We've got people much more clever than me, like Mark Gillam, who's going to come on stage and share very detailed methodologies of all of this. I'm just giving simple examples here of why this stuff matters. So in today's world, we're multi-channel. The old story I recounted of this silo-based, filling up the distributor, sitting back, the contractor shows up in the truck, those days are gone. It's not a linear fashion anymore. And I see that trading partners are literally winning and losing together, okay? And often losing together, by the way. So working together tightly is really important, and the future is not about operating in that silo way. It's about actually teaming up with your suppliers, with your customers, and operating closely together. A specific example I see all the time in different industries is forms of support where, again, imagine my story. A contractor shows up, they have just won a really big contract to build 100 houses. Happens all the time. And they come into the distributor and they say, right, I want you to supply 100 boilers, 100 air conditioning units, I need all of the material to build these houses, and I need some support. What happens in that situation is the distributor will start speaking to different manufacturers, say, I've got this opportunity, I've got this project, and basically try to get the best support, the best pricing from those manufacturers. But it's a very, very manual process, okay? It's very, very manual. It's phone calls, it's emails, it's like hours or even days waiting for responses. And then after that, the contractor's possibly gone and gone somewhere else. So we're kind of accepting, and we've been accepting of that type of process in the industries that we're in. But imagine if that was the case with booking an airline ticket. Imagine if you went online to fly from San Francisco to Chicago and it took 2 days to get a price. I mean, this kind of real-time pricing and being able to do business at that speed does need to be applied in the supply chain. And a lot of the technology that we have and the way that AI is going as well will actually get to the same real-time pricing in the physical supply chain as we get with Google and with airlines. a really big change is the shift of the majority of transactions moving to being quoted. So one of our plumbing and heating customers in Europe, I'll tell you a story here. I was talking with the CIO there. They've been customers for a very, very long time. And going back only 5 years, 80% of their business, 80% of their revenue was what I explained. Guys turning up, it's at their local branch, in their vehicle, and loading up. That was 80%. They have hundreds and hundreds of branch locations, so it's very much a local business. 80% was that type of trade, and 20% was more quotation-based, bids-based, where they would receive an opportunity to quote, and they would win or lose business that way. That has now shifted significantly to a situation where more than 50% of their business is based on RFPs. It's gone from 20% to 50% in 5 years. And what's happening there is they're being asked to quote the job that I just described, 100 houses, but instead of the guy being at the counter talking about this project, this is now a quote coming in on all kinds of channels. And what the CIO was telling me is their ability, or I should say the difference between success and failure for them was the ability to quote efficiently. And there were many reasons why they were losing quotes. The obvious one, of course, is they were too expensive. They weren't getting the support they needed. They weren't pricing and winning together with their supplier. Too slow to respond. That was a real reason that they were just not winning quotes. But the third reason, he said, was almost worse than the first two. They were winning business at terms where they would never, ever make money. So they were literally winning the bid. They were fast enough to get the quote in and win the bid, but they hadn't actually factored in all of the commercial terms, and they were never, ever going to make a profit. They were always going to lose money. So this is happening all the time. And I think the key message here that I want to emphasize is that too many people are losing because they're not collaborative enough with their trading partners and they're moving too slowly. That's the reality of what's happening. And the CIO I was talking about, he has deployed a really, really innovative approach, which is changing the game. He's gone from this situation where, the job comes in and they're phoning around and saying to their partners, we've got this opportunity for 100 boilers and we've got all of these different kind of conditions and waiting for response. They're going from that world to one where they're actually anticipating what support they can get based on what they've had before and what that partner is likely to approve. So let's just think about that for a minute. That's saying, rather than waiting for 10 different suppliers to come back to me with, here's the level of support I can give you for this unique opportunity, they're using AI, they're using technology to actually predict and anticipate what support they would get, and then they're actually going forward and pricing the job, quoting to the contractor, and winning the business. And then they have to true up occasionally. So of course, sometimes they get it wrong. Sometimes the technology gets it wrong, and actually they won't get quite the level of support they anticipated, but it can be trued up later. And if we have good relationships with our trading partners, we can talk about that. We can say, okay, in the last 6 months, we've done all of these projects, we've anticipated, and we're asking for these support levels, and sometimes we got it slightly wrong, but overall, we won all this business together. So that I thought was extremely innovative and something that can speed up the whole supply chain. Ultimately, there will be AI agents on both sides of the trading relationship negotiating with each other in real time, by the way. So you'll have the manufacturer and the distributor, and they'll be talking to each other, negotiating with each other via AI agents and getting to that optimized price, that real-time price where the transaction can go through. And so you will have the speed of airline ticketing and Google AdWords on the whole physical supply chain. But that is I think the next stage. For now, anticipating and responding much more quickly in these situations is what we're going to see across many industries. So what I've definitely observed is there's maximum success, if you like, where trading partners become a seamless extension of each other, where they're working closely together. It's a strategic relationship. And if we just talk about this partnership, let's talk about what the end customer wants. Because the end customer wants and needs the distributor, and the end customer wants and needs the manufacturer. They're looking for the local knowledge that the distributor has. The distributor is operating in their region, in their area. They know what projects are going on. They have that local knowledge, so they want that. They also have a relationship with the distributor. They know the team there. They know the local team. And they have the availability of goods at the distributor. So there's lots of reasons why the customer wants and will always need the distributor. And of course, they will also need the manufacturer because they want to get access to the product. So they want to get access to the product, and they really need all that the distributor has to offer. So those that can act together as a seamless whole are the ones who are winning. But most commercial systems are stuck in the old paradigm. They're stuck in that paradigm of siloed operations, and they kind of assume a stable and predictable market, which is not one that we're in. So I think the gap between how business relationships actually work today and how systems are designed to support them has never been wider. And in that growing gap, business is being lost and margin is being eroded. So it was on this basis that we originally created Enable. We took a lot of time to study what defined the most successful trading relationships. There were lots and lots of tactical relationships, commodities, trading, where people are kind of beating each other up, focusing only on the lowest price, very, very transactional. And then there were strategic relationships where it was about a lot more than that. They had joint business plans. And the joint business plan is very positive. If you're trying to create a seamless operation for your customers between your manufacturer and yourself, having a joint business plan of what the objectives are that are shared between those companies, and then what the terms are to actually execute that plan and achieve those goals, that is hugely powerful. And so we kind of saw how effective joint business plans were and how they were driving the best trading relationships. And that really kind of inspired the Enable vision. How can we make that the norm? How can we have a situation, industry by industry, whether it's the US electrical distribution space or whether it's the UK food service market, how can we have these ecosystems where manufacturers and distributors are partnering up together to serve customers? And that's really good for everyone. It's certainly good for the trading partners, it's good for the customer, and it's also good for the economy. So this is really the big vision, which is much bigger than Enable. It's really all of us and more. How can we create those thriving ecosystems? And the way that we do that and what we do every day is really our mission. So what we're here to do is create a lot of transparency between trading partners, which can be controlled. You can determine what you want to share, build a huge amount of trust, because if there's a lack of trust between these partners, you can't serve customers that well. We have to really build that hugely solid link between you and your trading partners so that you can then serve customers better together. Because there is no doubt, working together, we can serve our customers better than we can alone. That's a fact. As I say, customers need and want the distributor. They need and want the manufacturer. We can serve customers better together than we can alone, but we need to create a huge amount of trust in order to do that. And the way that we're doing that, the way that we have been doing that, is by digitizing and now also AI enabling both trading relationships and commercial agreements. Okay? Let me give you an example of another company which is just a little bit bigger than Enable. LinkedIn. Has everyone heard of LinkedIn? So I was looking at the Wikipedia page for LinkedIn, and it says it's an American business, and it's American business and employment-oriented social network. Okay? But what's interesting is LinkedIn didn't create a network. They did not create a network. What they did is they digitized the network that was already there and then added a huge amount of value to it. You know, people already had their connections, but what LinkedIn did is allowed them to turn that into a digital representation of that network, and then it allowed the network to grow much faster and gain momentum because it applied technology and, of course, now AI to that network. So for Enable, you know, we've helped companies digitize their trading agreements, generate forecasts, create accruals. Marty LaBelle, our Chief Product Officer, will be talking a lot later about what we've been releasing with AI. We've released AI-powered analytics 2.0 last month, and he'll be talking about what we're doing on rebate optimization and agentic AI. These are all things that are being applied to the trading relationships and the trading agreements that you guys already have. Okay? But it's being enhanced, and it's going much faster than it can when it's not digital. And then I think the next phase, if today it's about digitizing what you have now, the next phase is really how can you discover new trading relationships and how can you discover new trading opportunities as well. So in the past 12 months, can you believe, Enable has processed $1.85 trillion of transactions. That's 87% up on last year. The year before that was significant growth. So we're starting to get to some scale. I was looking back, Enable's revenues since we launched Catalyze 3 years ago are 625% increase in that 3-year period. And that's because of the ROI our customers are getting by using it. Customers sign up, they get ROI, and they stick around, and they do more. And there was actually an independent study that was done recently that found companies that had implemented Enable had realized, on average, $2.5 million of hard ROI benefit, hard dollar benefit. You can download the report on enable.com. They'd also enhanced cash flow by reducing the time taken to collect from 12 down to 4 weeks on average. And they'd also roughly doubled the number of trading partners that they had rebate agreements with. We're also freeing up people. So it's not just about business ROI, it's also about freeing up people to go from, number crunching and analysis into genuine strategic work of how can we drive strategic relationships now that we don't need to do all of this manual work. And we've got around 3,000 people now in our online community, which I launched here a couple of years ago with a handful of people. So there's a lot here. You'll be hearing from people today and tomorrow. You can join if you haven't already, and there's a huge amount of best practice and knowledge that you can find. But there's a whole other side of this story now as well. And of course, that story is around pricing. And pricing is really the secret weapon in tackling volatility and protecting margins. If nothing else, I think the recent chaos has shown us about the need to be more agile. Okay? And when costs spike, when logistics costs surge, we need to respond in hours and not weeks. And I think one of the most dangerous legacies of the past, and even the present, is data silos, where we have rebates over here in one place, we have pricing somewhere else. It's a recipe for leakage and a recipe for missed opportunity. So speed is the new currency, and if you're not built for speed, you're really paying the price. But what if there is another way? I'd like you to imagine something with me. Imagine a world where pricing teams can roll out across thousands of SKUs, dozens of markets, instantly. Imagine walking into a negotiation already knowing every possible commercial deal structure and how each of those will impact your bottom line before you even walk in. And then how about imagine having pricing support with your trading partners in real time and being able to introduce new agreements automatically without any human intervention. Much of this is actually a reality today, and it's what happens when you combine pricing and rebates and then supercharge that with AI. One source of truth, real-time visibility, and real-time action. Earlier this year, we made a bold move and we welcomed FlintFox to Enable. You'll be hearing about this shortly. Yeah, thanks for the enthusiasm. So FlintFox is the world's fastest price execution engine. But this isn't just another tech acquisition. This is a really big strategic leap, because by bringing together intelligent rebates and high-speed price execution powered by AI, we're creating a platform that delivers unparalleled visibility, complete control, and also the ability to act at speed. Clearly a key theme from my discussion today. Because ultimately, you want to have highly targeted surgical pricing with each customer. The example I gave of a company with 10 million part numbers, they want to be able to sell to different customers at different prices because customers are all different. They're in different markets. One customer is buying 1 unit and one customer is buying 10,000 units. So you need to be able to do that. But that creates a huge amount of complexity. And FlintFox helps businesses to calculate and deliver accurate pricing at huge volume. Accurate pricing at huge volume across products, suppliers, customers, and critically, in real time. It creates a central source of truth for pricing rules that you can execute across any ERP, you can execute across any geography, application, and also device. And when I say real time, I really do mean that. FlintFox actually calculates 5,000 prices per second per node. And I can tell you that's an order of magnitude faster than any ERP or CRM system today. So when market conditions do change, and you notice I'm not using the T word anymore, I have dropped it from this point, but when market conditions do change, you can respond immediately, not next week, not tomorrow, but you can actually do that right now. Because as the pricing rules will get increasingly complex, increasingly targeted, increasingly surgical, it's going to be very important to deal with this. One thing which I found quite staggering is quite a lot of companies now are transacting at the wrong price, a big percentage of the time. Because what they're trying to do with multi-channel is at any particular endpoint, whether it's a call center, their website, a branch location, any particular endpoint, they're trying to rapidly work out based on the context, based on this customer, who they are, what they're buying, where they are, what should the price be, okay? And the rules might be there. They've got the rules to get to the price, but they can't actually get to it quickly enough. It can't actually be generated. And as a result of that, they're actually transacting at the wrong price. And this is often happening more than 10% of the time. So just think about that. I talked about the cost of delayed price changes, but actually transacting at the wrong price entirely. That is going on every day. So I think really in today's volatile world, when material costs spike overnight, you can adjust pricing before it hits your margin. And when a competitor launches a promotion, you can respond before they gain much traction. And then when market changes, you can model and act well before those changes take effect. So just to kind of summarize and try and bring this into land, I think the key themes that we're seeing are this need to collaborate to fully move away from that silo-based approach in the past of just working independently from your trading partners is critical. collaboration has to be strong inside the four walls of your business, but also between your trading partners, with your suppliers, with your customers. And in order to do that, it's really critical to modernize. Everything we've talked about today, all the stories and anecdotes I've shared, will not be possible if you're working off an ancient platform. And let's be clear that the vast majority of the supply chain, I'm sure many of you guys excluded because you're all visionary and modern, but much of the supply chain is still on ancient platforms. And I can tell you that SAP, which is one of the biggest ERP systems our customers use, more than 80% of their customers are still on-premise. They're not yet in the cloud. So this transformation to cloud, adopting modern architecture, AI, is going to be happening in a massive way, and it hasn't happened yet. Again, many of us think it has happened. Everyone's in the cloud. Not true. More than 80% of SAP customers are not yet in the cloud. And then the big theme that I'm using to pull all of this together is commercial optimization. So again, the days of the supplier rebate team sitting in one corner that is only interested in purchasing and only interested in supply rebates, that's gone. That's long gone. What's happening is the buy side and the sell side are totally coming together. Teams are being incentivized and targeted on that through margin, looking at the whole kind of journey from buy to sell. They're looking at rebates on the buy side and sell side, and pricing on the buy side and the sell side. They're looking at every single type of commercial agreement, sales agreements, purchase agreements, as well as all the different types of rebates and pricing and discounts they have. And they're looking at that end-to-end margin. They're looking at true product profitability. That's really what's coming together. And using the technology to be able to achieve that commercial optimization across the whole company and across the whole supply chain is what will separate winners from losers. So this is a huge theme for transformation that we're seeing over the coming years. And then finally, in terms of applying AI and taking things to a whole new level, like I said at the beginning, this is not some theoretical or experimental kind of thing. We're talking about practical applications that drive measurable results today, even in our industries. This is not just for software companies or tech companies. This is literally what distributors and manufacturers are using to get competitive advantage today. And one of the many use cases I saw from a customer in this room recently was how they have actually managed to use AI to negotiate new contracts, rebates, with several hundred suppliers, smaller suppliers, and put 7 figures of additional income in place without any human interaction. It's entirely been done through agentic AI, of literally going out, negotiating with those companies, putting agreements in place. And right now, it's relatively simple agreements and relatively small suppliers, but that was something which was not there before, and that has not involved a single human. And again, this isn't an idea. This is something which companies are actually doing and executing on right now. So this isn't just about keeping up. This is about staying ahead. And many of the capabilities are here today with Enable and our partners. And just wanted to thank all of our partners for being here. This is really about building out an ecosystem, and many of our partners are also using AI and providing capabilities. The stories I've shared are not only what Enable is doing. This is what I'm seeing in the industry and what our partners are supporting. So I'm very excited to work with our partners on this and work with each of you to make this happen. So this is Revenue Reimagined for speed, for strategy, for resilience, and the future really does belong to organizations that can harness real-time data, predictive insights, and then actually automate execution to maximize profitability, reduce friction, and respond dynamically to market changes. Let me just leave you with this thought. In terms of volatility, I see 2 types of companies. Those that are swept along by the storm, and those that harness those same forces for competitive advantage. Change is clearly happening faster than ever, both inside and outside our companies, and with the right setup, everyone in this room can enable growth. You need commercial partners and platforms equipped for a volatile world, not just to respond, but to anticipate. Not just to protect margins, but to increase them. And not just to survive volatility, but actually to thrive because of it. Thank you very much.